This is the third example on the normal distribution on z-scores. Now just to explain what the z-scores mean first of all. Now we've already looked at the previous examples where we have your empirical rule and the normal distribution. So you already know that 68% of the data lies within one standard deviation of the mean, 95 lies within two standard deviations, and 99.7% lies within three standard deviations of the mean. What the z-score means, it's just a number value we're given to it based on how far a particular thing is from the mean. So for example, this would be the score of 0. You would have this one here is the score of 1, since it's one standard deviation from the mean. This would be a score of 2, which is two standard deviations from the mean. This would be a score of 3, since it's three standard deviations from the mean. And then all of these are in a positive direction. If they're one standard deviation of the mean going the opposite direction, it's going to be -1, -2, and -3. And then what we're able to do from that, if, say, for example, we wanted to find out what would the z-score be for the one in the middle, we're given a formula to be able to calculate that. So you know already just by looking at it, it's going to be not going to be -1, it's going to be a bit less than that, but we have a formula that'll help us calculate it. Now this diagram isn't done very well here, but you can kind of get the idea from this one here as well. Same idea. So it's going to be a score of 0, which is the mean, plus and -1 for one standard deviation, plus and -2 for the two standard deviations, and so on. Now we have a formula that helps us calculate the z value here. So it's going to be z is equal to x minus mu over rho. So what that means is it's going to be the score minus the mean all over the standard deviation. Okay, and we're going to use this formula to help us answer the following question. So Simon and Susan did a test in French and a test in science. Both tests had a maximum mark of 100. The results are given in the table below. So you can see Susan's mark, you can see Simon's mark, you can see the mean mark, and you can also see the standard deviation. So what we're able to do from that is then able to work out the z-scores. So it says work out the z-scores for each subject and comment on the performance of Simon and Susan. So we're going to calculate, first of all, we're going to calculate Susan's scores for both. So we'll look at Susan's score first of all for French. So we're going to get a z-score for French. Now to get our z-score for French, it's going to be x minus the mean all over the standard deviation. So that is equal to 75 minus 60, which was her mean mark. And then it's all over the standard deviation, which was 10. So that's equal to 1.5. To get her corresponding z-score for science, it's going to be her mark in science, which was 65, minus the mean mark in science, which was 50, and then that's all over 5, which was the standard deviation. And then that is equal to 3. Then for the next one, we will also do it for Simon. So first of all, looking at a z-score for French. Again, you can write down the formula if you want, and we will fill the values in. So his score in French, he got 50, minus the mean, which was 60, and then it's a standard deviation of 10. So that's going to be minus 10 over 10, which is -1. And then we'll also do his z-score for science. So that was equal to, he got 40 in science. The mean mark was 50, and the standard deviation was 5. So his z-score for science is 2. Then what we have to do is, by looking at the z-scores, we need to comment on the performance of Simon and Susan. So we can look at our values first of all here very closely. Looking at their values, you can see that Susan got a score of 1.5 in French and a z-score of 3 in science. So 3 would be up at 3 standard deviations from the mean. The 1.5 is halfway between 1 and 2 standard deviations from the mean. So you can see her results are positive. And then a z-score for Simon for French was -1, so he's 1 standard deviation below the mean. And then you can also see for science, again, he is 1 standard deviation below the mean. So just to conclude at the end, overall Susan did better than Simon, as her z-scores are also known as her standard scores, were 1.5 and 3 above the mean. Each of Simon's scores were below the mean, both of -1 and -2. Susan's best mark was in science, and that was the best overall score, since it was the highest one. And then the worst score overall was Simon's science mark, which had the lowest Z score. You can see it of -2.